Tonight on Podcast 'em Down, TOS Rewatch, the Romulans cross the 38th parallel. Captain Kirk executes a police action in the name of peace.
Podcast them down.
All right. Yeah, that was the abbreviated intro. Hail Metal Nation! We are back with more of the Star Trek rewatch, where we decide how metal all the original series Star Trek episodes are. Wow, that was a weird cutoff on the thing. Anyway.
Not just metal, but the quality of them too.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we have discerning listeners.
How metal it is our value added to your standard rewatch, and that's why we're doing this better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Much better than everybody else.
And we have a truly objective system that even lets you know what segments to watch if you so choose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hell yes.
I assume at the end of this whole thing, we're gonna publish a research paper or something.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll be able to determine which, not only which episodes are metal, but also, which series are more metal than others. It's really going to be quite an adventure when we're done.
Yeah, and we're going to have to figure out how to split the movies into 5 acts.
Yeah. I mean, we'll find a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have some time because we have to get through the whole animated series first.
Oh, God damn it.
And no, that's canon, man. We've already mentioned it, but some of the best Star Trek ever occurs on the animated series.
Yeah, the Infinite Vulcan.
Uh-huh.
The one where they meet Satan. It's not Satan.
They meet a Kukulkan. They all go back in time. We meet Captain Robert April, and we see Baby Scotty. I mean, it's
all right. But that's all future content.
Yeah, that's future content.
Let's deal with present content, and as usual, I will be observing the episode as we go. All right, begin.
Okay. All right, well, Matt, I'll just say I think this one's going to be interesting because we might go high on quality, low on metal, but we'll see.
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question. So we begin with the most metal thing you can do. And that's get married. So we open in the chapel. Now I know what you're thinking, not Nurse Christine Chapel, but the Jesus Christ Chapel.
No.
I don't know, Doug, because there's a pretty apparent cross behind Captain Kirk's shoulder.
I'm looking.
We also see Rand randomly lighting that humanist tree.
Okay, that's true. All right, so she is lighting like a topsy-turvy Hanukkah menorah kind of device. So she is lighting like the tree. But there is also a cross. Maybe some goon from CBS required them to put the or NBC at this point. Some goon from NBC maybe put that up there. But you're right. Okay, it's a non-denominational chapel, certainly.
I see the thing you're talking about. Yeah, it's like, oh, what the fuck? All right. It's kind of like
I mean, the most shocking thing
drawn on the wall. It's part.
Yeah.
It's like appears to be some of the wall design. Well, so Rand's hairdo looks like a basket weave,
and then the way
like
Rand stands,
a baseball mitt. The webbing of a baseball mitt. That's what I said. What the fuck to? All right.
And how Rand stands like 3 inches from Kirk or leans through. But the most shocking thing about the first 30 seconds is we see Scotty doing something.
Yeah, Scotty shows up, but we haven't seen Scotty. I can't even remember the last time I saw Scotty. But isn't he walking Ensign What's-Her-Name down the aisle?
He does. It opens with him adjusting a camera on the wall. In which case, he announces at which point that the wedding will be on all screens.
That's right.
There's no escaping this wedding. But then he walks whatever her name is, very important character.
down the aisle. So you know, two of our beloved bass friends, Angela Martine and Robert Tomlinson, who we know from all those wacky previous 13 episodes, they're finally getting hitched. And so they walk down the aisle. Scotty gives Angela Martine away. Kirk begins a speech that says something like, "From the days of the oldest sailing ships." And the only reason I know that is because Captain Picard in Data's Day gives the exact same damn speech, which is like an example of early fan service, I suppose. But, you know, luckily or unluckily, we don't have to dwell on this wedding for long because, you know what happens? There's a goddamn red alert.
Oh, red alert! Earth Outpost 4.
Earth Outpost 4.
And there was already some foreshadowing because Kirk, he's not going to cancel this wedding for anything, but he's on top of the Earth Outpost situation and gets an update in the middle of the ceremony.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they do get a quick update, and he says, we'll keep going.
And the cross reflection on the wall aside, I will argue this is one of the few things that people credit Star Trek for that it actually never compromised on in the Roddenberry era, was sort of its uncompromising atheism or humanist perspective on things. So there's no mention of God. There's only in accordance to our laws and many beliefs.
He does say that. That's true. That's true.
All right. Yeah. Then red alert, black, and then
that's it.
An intense shot of running in the hallway.
I believe I'll start. I'm going to give this a quality score of 1 because I don't know these people. I don't care who they are. I don't know what this outpost is, and I don't care that it's in danger. Who cares?
So you're going to care soon.
Well, I don't care now.
1. Okay, sure.
And I'm also going to give it a metal score of -1.
-1?
Absolutely nothing metal. I don't care.
Wow.
There was destruction somewhere, and we didn't even get to see it.
Okay, that's true. There's lots of implied destruction in this episode.
Actually, raise that -1 to a 0.1.
0.1. All right. Okay.
I don't think I was being objective when I gave it the -1, so I corrected myself.
It was very emotional of you. Okay, I'm gonna give it.
Wait! I'm sorry, I said all this outside the room. There we go. All right.
Fuck yeah, damn.
Yeah. Sorry to confuse everyone. We're in the decision chamber.
Everything I said outside applies inside.
People could have heard us. They could be confused.
Well, I don't care who knows that I don't care about anything that's happened so far.
All right. That's. I'm gonna give 1 metal point for your metalness, Tim, because it made you do a lot of metal stuff. I'm gonna give it a 2nd metal point, because monogamy is metal. You're yeah, it's totally metal, man. You're like, you and me. You know, that's pretty metal. And then the guy says, okay.
I think Manowar would disagree with you.
Well, I mean, how metal is Manowar, really?
What? Wait, what?
That's a fair question, but that's like a third rail.
Hey,
that could be a mini series.
Is the question how metal is Manowar, or is the question how metal was Manowar, which are 2 different questions?
Well, I think I think that would be a great episode. We'll get Mike in here and a Dave, and we can answer the question how metal was Manowar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Religion can be metal, but I don't think it's pretty metal at this point.
What about the absence of religion?
But no, there very clearly is religion. Dancing around the obvious is kind of metal. But that's only worth like a 0.2. What is really metal is creating misinformation. And I believe everyone thinks because of this Star Trek episode that ship captains can marry people, and they cannot. In fact, I just pulled up here, according to the U.S. Navy regulations, they're instructed not to marry people.
Does that mean they can but aren't allowed to?
It says according to Navy regulations, the commanding officer shall not perform a marriage ceremony on board his ship or aircraft.
But that sounds
probably
also,
in response to this episode.
Again, it sounds to me like he can, but the Navy won't let him. You know what I mean? Like if he did it, if it sounds like to me like if he did it, it would count.
Well,
he or she. Sorry.
Marriages at sea. Marriages at sea or on dry land cannot be performed by virtue of a maritime license alone, and no state has enacted a statute explicitly authorizing ships' captains to officiate marriages.
Right, so it's an act of transgression against the state.
Yeah, so that's metal. That's a whole nother 1.1.
So wait, so they can do it, but it won't count? That's what I'm getting at.
Anyone can do a marriage, but you want a marriage. Yeah. I mean, I could marry you and Doug right now. There's nothing stopping me. Amen.
Yeah, the first thing brides.com says is a ship's captain does not. Yeah.
But what about that documentary, The Office? Are you telling me Jim and Pam lived in sin?
I think
all they need, in order for a captain to be able to perform a marriage at sea, he must also be a judge, a justice of the peace, a minister, or an officially recognized officiant such as a notary public. Okay, so he's a notary or a minister. We know he's a justice of the peace.
But let me read you Captain Kirk's speech. Since the days of the first wooden vessels, all shipmasters have had one happy privilege, that of uniting two people in the bonds of matrimony. So this is an outright lie. And even if it's true in the 23rd century, it's not true that it was true from the time of the first wooden sailing vessels to now, because we're in between those times and we can't. So either way, Kirk is lying.
Perhaps ship's master has a specific meaning applied retroactively.
I mean, maybe now it could be Doug, that in the post-atomic horror, all metal was outlawed, and so then they did have wooden sailing vessels then. But since the Phoenix was metal, I doubt that. Anyway,
okay, let's move on. We're 2 minutes into the episode.
It's a 3.3 metal score and a 2 quality score from me.
I don't know. I'm actually going to go 5 and 5.
Wow.
Is interesting, given how objective this is. Our differing viewpoints on the wedding, which seems very post deity to me.
Well, that's why we average the scores, Doug.
And gutsy in 66. Not much happens, but we don't. I mean, it's a novel situation. I do accept Kirk's rationale, controversial position with this crowd, but I find it plausible. And quality, I mean, not much. Yeah, we've never seen this before. I don't think we really see it again. Certainly not in the original series. And what's going on with the outposts?
Yeah,
there's a a hook. All right, five metal, 4 quality, and we'll move on.
Okay, great. Let's get out of this. Thank you.
Way ahead of you. That was the first one out of there.
Out of the chamber. Man, we sure did talk about weddings a lot.
All right, and okay, so the Kirk, he seems a little confused in his log entry here because he speaks of them patrolling the neutral zone between Romulus and Remus and the rest of the galaxy. Okay, it makes sense. And they're going to an emergency call at Outpost 4. Then we learn that Outpost 4 is under attack. Kirk orders to maximum speed. No, Sulu actually just says we're at maximum speed.
Yeah, it doesn't look like maximum speed. It looks like a slow cruise.
And then Scotty commits to doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
And then Styles, who's a very confused character throughout this episode, states there can't be much doubt as to who's attacking, sir. This is one of the things he says that's probably actually correct.
Yeah, I mean, Styles is right throughout this entire episode, except for mostly right. But he has this whole. We'll just go out and say it. He's an anti-Romulite. He for various reasons knows that the planets Romulus and Remus are trouble. And he knows what's going on.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it more in future acts, but it's like his whole life seems to be about revenge, but it's like those people who subconsciously work against themselves because that big goal they don't at some level want to obtain. And we see that in Styles at several points. So yeah, then Kirk has Spock do an exposition dump on the entire crew.
I'm slogging through that as you speak.
And we learn about the Earth War with the Romulan Empire.
Weirdly, when Spock pulls up the map, the name of the two planets are Romulus and Romi, rather than Romulus and Remus. Which I just thought was weird.
Oh, did you watch the remaster or the original?
I watched the remaster and it still had Romi. I
didn't notice that. Yeah, but they probably the graphics people didn't get the script.
I think they kept it because it's such an iconic image with all the little teeny tiny triangle bases.
Yeah.
There's a guy who looks like a sitcom dad, also like watching on one of the monitors when Spock is narrating this goddamn novel.
Yeah, I think that's Styles. I don't want to question 23rd century tactics as a 21st century person, but it seems to me like
you can only do that if you're a medical doctor, as we learn later.
Oh yeah, as we learn in this. But it seems to me like putting all your outposts in a straight line in 3-dimensional space is probably not the best way to secure a space border.
Yeah.
Personally.
So we learned that this war in our histories was fought with primitive atomic weapons and primitive space vessels that allowed no quarter and no captives, and there wasn't even ship-to-ship visual communication.
Very important.
Therefore, Earth and its allies have no idea what the Romulans look like, and vice versa. And then Kirk reiterates that his orders are precise and inviolable, that they cannot provocate unless they want to.
But he also weirdly says that the Enterprise and all the bases are expendable, which seems weird.
Yeah. Well, and the episode proves Kirk correct here, but he starts by saying that everyone on the ship has to watch every action as if one individual on a starship could provocate a war.
Yeah.
I think we see two instances in which, yes, apparently that can happen.
Yeah, actually, yes. So we check in with phaser control for a little bit, where our two lovebirds are. They're hanging out there. They're just kind of like sarcastic.
He drops he's her superior officer, and
Yeah.
that made me uncomfortable.
Well, it's the 23rd century. They figured all this out. Well, and I think this is the first time we see phaser control fully stood up and the 50 people it takes to staff, which does explain why it was so difficult in Star Trek 3 for Scotty to automate it all.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it requires a lot of people, and we'll get to it when we fire the phasers, but I have a lot of phaser-related questions. But we'll leave that for later. So shit's going down. They lost contact with Outpost 2. Now something is wrong with Outpost 4. They get a call. There's a Commander Hansen who's in charge of Outpost 4, and it's not good. It's not good at all. They're able to get him on screen. And he says the Outpost 2, 3, and 8 are gone. They don't know how they're destroyed, but they were completely destroyed, even with their shields at maximum. They can't see. They've only got a glimpse of the ship. There's lots of sort of unknown energies, unknown vessels. It's very, very sort of tense. They get him on the viewer, and he's just in this horrible, fiery, his shit's all wrecked up kind of situation. Lots of dialogue.
We learned an awful lot about view screen technology in this episode.
And I'm really confused how view screen technology works, because it seems that you can turn on view screens and view people even when they don't know you're watching them, which is something we saw in the Corbomite maneuver as well. Like it's very much like turning on a window. What?
Oh shit!
What happened?
Nothing.
Okay.
What's gonna happen? Go ahead.
So and
shit.
We learned that we
goes.
can see the Outpost view screen on the Enterprises, and we see it destroyed.
Yeah. So the vessel comes back. Hansen says it's here. They fire it again, and we see the unfortunately the death of old Commander Hansen as this energy beam destroys Outpost 4 as well.
And then Kirk gets his first inkling of how Romulan technology works.
Yeah.
And within about 15 minutes, they'll have figured it all out.
Entirely, but not yet. So now they're confused because they just see a blip on the motion sensors, not a ship. And they're very confused. How can this be? Spock says that you could theoretically render a ship invisible, but it's really power costly to do it. And we begin with... I really don't understand this because it seems like the whole episode takes place 5 minutes away from the neutral zone, and yet both the Romulan ship and the Enterprise are just dancing on the edge of the neutral zone. and they just start following the blip. And even though they're really sure that the blip is an enemy ship, Kirk just says, "All right, cancel battle stations and just put everyone on standby. So we're gonna follow this blip around."
Yeah. I mean, Kirk is, you can see why he's so highly regarded by the Federation in this episode. He's at his best in a lot of it, but his crew resource management and some basic command decisions are still pretty questionable.
I mean, I think this goes back earlier. We pointed out the vacancy of the personnel director, and I think we're seeing this again.
Yeah.
Styles says a bunch of racist shit against Romulans,
Which Sulu is forced to agree with, unfortunately.
For no reason, Styles concludes that there must be Romulan spies on the ship, and I don't understand how. I mean, we've already seen that they have an incredible, unstoppable weapon, right? The only thing we know about them is that they're invisible, and they have a mega weapon that can eat through shields and destroy entire outposts in 2 shots. So what if that leads you to conclude that there need spies on board?
Right. It seems the only communication Earth and its allies have ever had was an armistice via subspace radio.
And if we want to get into some intrigue in Enterprise, yes, there are Romulan spies everywhere, but we don't know that right now. We don't even know what Romulans look like, and it just seems strange that I don't know when they could have picked up these spies. Maybe when they were like at that planet where they watched the play, but it just seems illogical. Anyway, Kirk says, "Yeah, let's do a security alert," and they do. And this is a really long act. Okay, so they
shit.
I know where Tim is. Okay, so they pick up, Uhura picks up a signal coming from the ship, the enemy ship, and they start recording it. And through that signal, Spock says he's able to view inside the Romulan ship. And this is going to be the first time Federation people have ever seen Romulans. And so, again, somehow he turns on the viewer or whatever he does, and we see them.
Wow.
And what do they look like?
Vulcans.
Dressed like space Romans. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like space Roman Vulcans. And that's the end of Act 1.
And then you look at Spock and he looks like he's outed.
Yeah. Although Spock, I was waiting for Spock to say fascinating, but he didn't. And they like zoom in on him. I was like, say it. And then it's commercial. I'm like, oh shit.
And there's like 4 shots of just people looking, glancing.
All with zooms.
All right, so end act.
Oh.
All right, take us to the decision chamber.
There we go. Okay, I'll start, I guess, again. I was all prepared to give this ones again because of all the talking, and then all the nothing, and then all the nothing, and then all the destruction that happens off camera. But then finally we get to see the ship kill the base, and then there's more talking. So I'm not going to give it a 1. I will give it a 3 for quality.
Okay.
And I don't know, lengthy exposition's kind of metal. So I'll give it a 4 for the metalness.
I mean, backstory is very metal. So, okay. I'm gonna give it. I kind of agree with you. It's a 4 of metal. I like the reveal, the tension creating reveal. I do like the backstory. I do like the metalness of the broken up, fucked up starbase. That looks kind of cool. And there's lots of like twisted metal around him, so that's worth something. Quality wise, I'm a little torn here because I want to give it a higher score because it sets up the rest of the episode. But I agree, it's a 3. It's there's a lot of necessary movement. There's not a lot of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, I think the Styles character's existential confusion is pretty metal. And his just asserting things that would seem to have no factual possibility.
I do want to say the Styles character's animosity towards the Romulans is weird. Like, I think this is the scene where he, in the beginning, he talks about how the Styleses fought in that war, and Kirk says, that was their war, not yours, Styles. But I just did some math. Like, the distance we're talking about is the distance between now and World War I. And I can imagine you like taking note that your grandparents fought in World War I or your great grandparents, but it just seems odd to hold that much animosity for a conflict that's been so long in the past.
Especially this radically more civilized time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Doug's sounding like a Prussian spy to me.
Fucking Hohenzollerns.
Yeah,
how many Ottomans do you know?
21st century. Yeah, I'm gonna go with a quality score of 4.
Okay.
It does a really good job at setting up what is to come, but we have to score it on the basis of the act. And
exactly.
It only warrants a 4. Metal. Yeah, I mean there's less bluster and uneven command decisions than the usual things that make bridge scenes metal don't play out here because people act responsibly generally. Although you have this bigot who is saying contradictory things and you don't do anything about it. That's pretty metal.
The bigotry is odd. But metal, you're right, yeah.
And it's Kirk seeing all this and then doing nothing. When we know he has a bunch of people on call.
Like, it's also weird. I would expect, Hansen mentions that the weapons crew is dead, but I imagine there's more than 4 people on Outpost 4, and yet they don't really treat it like a big loss. At least 4 outposts have been destroyed, and it's just kind of like, yeah, that'll happen sometimes. It's like a third of the outposts are gone, but Kirk doesn't seem to take it like that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of okay. That's fairly metal. Self-centeredness. And obliviousness to it. So we'll go with the metal score of 6.
Wow. All right. Okay, let's leave the chamber. Press play.
Will do. All right, go.
Go.
All right, so where are we?
There's just some racism. Okay, so
Uhura, there's no bigotry on this bridge.
Yeah, well, so Uhura is recording the signal and she's trying to decode it. And And she says, I just can't figure it out. And racist old Mr. Styles says, why don't you give it to Spock to figure out?
Ooh.
And it's like, oh. And Kirk again says something not entirely helpful. He says something like, you keep your bigotry in your quarters, but it doesn't belong on the bridge, or something like that.
And then meanwhile, Styles is saying this coming from a bad place, but he's actually correct again, is he not?
Yeah. I mean, he is, because actually you should give it to Spock. He's the one, I presume, if anyone knows a language somewhat close to Romulan, it's Vulcan. They're different languages. I don't know if they're mutually intelligible, but at least he's closer. He's also the smartest person there, which we've established on many times. So why isn't Spock?
Uhura made a tape for him.
Yeah, she recorded, so she made him a tape.
Which
on a
is
big
an
wooden
orange
block.
square.
The other thing, so just the whole, I've been watching the latest series of Discovery, and it just bothers me because this is the first time we've ever discovered what Romulans look like, at least from the point of view of the Federation. And yes, I know there was all the subterfuge during Enterprise, but we didn't see them for real. At least not ones
weird.
pretending to be Vulcans. But why doesn't Michael Brennan learn in the 32nd century or wherever she is that Vulcans and Romulans are the same? And why isn't she like, holy shit, what? It's just a very lost opportunity. But that's for another time. That's for 2058 when we get to Discovery. But okay, so there's a bunch of like back and forth. And now we have the cat and mouse game with the Romulan vessel.
And
Right.
the vessel
We
has a
meet
bird painted on the bottom of it.
Yeah, that's how you know it's a Romulan.
And this is when we zoom in and meet the Romulans and experience their office politics firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn that the captain is either enlightened or suicidal.
Mm-hmm. We learn all about the Praetor, who is apparently the leader of the Romulans, or at least the Romulan military. We learn that this ship is the Praetor's flagship. We meet a helmeted guy named Decius, for whom a warbird will later be named, presumably, in a fantasy Will Riker has while he's captured by a young alien boy with a holodeck.
Why do the Romulans ditch the helmets in the future?
I don't know.
And why are they wearing helmets to begin with?
Well, I mean, it's
Danger and I are old companions.
yeah. You just answered your own question.
All right.
Yeah,
Carry on.
and I like how Decius has a name, but the XO is just referred to as Commander, a bigger part.
I call him Blondie. Yeah, he's and that guy's like a classic '60s actor, and I can see him like smoking his cools and wondering why the hell these stupid ears getting put on. But you know, a paycheck's a paycheck. So all kinds of stuff. Like they start. They notice the Enterprise is following them. They, for some reason, keep acting like they're in a submarine. They talk about radio silence. For some reason, they're all Roman influenced, and I don't understand where that comes from. I guess because Romulan kind of sounds like Roman. I don't know, but
Discovery has awkwardly explained that by now.
Not yet, Doug. I'm waiting for it. Maybe Strange New Worlds will, but nothing yet. So, Decius. Decius again, who's kind of the dick. He's in a way the friendly antagonist. He's sort of like the Styles character on the Romulan ship. And I don't quite get it because he's like friends with this supreme military commander, but he's clearly a junior officer. He's only wearing blue instead of the Imperial purple. There's just a lot of unanswered questions that I fear aren't answered by this episode.
Yeah, and they do set up some very purposeful mirroring of roles on the two ships.
Yeah.
And it pays off, but not as well as it could.
Yeah.
Who plays the bigot on the other ship?
I think it's
Wait, how did
Theseus,
it get
really.
I haven't been listening. They're in the room where Spock somehow has a piece of the outpost.
The cast Rhodinium. We're about to get there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
So the Enterprise starts to shadow the Romulan warbird into the neutral zone. And then Scott has somehow does something and gets aboard the debris. I guess they beamed it up. And then Kirk calls his command staff, unusual choices as usual, to the briefing room. And then Spock makes a big show with the cast rhodium, the hardest substance known to human science.
Yep.
Federation science, and it just crushes. And the lab has already theorized that in an eloping energy plasma forces an implosion.
Whatever that means.
Then Spock states that obviously their weaponry is superior to ours and they have practical invisibility. Then McCoy, who for some reason is here, is like, you're discussing tactics. Do you realize what this really comes down to? Millions of lives. So they stop talking about tactics because the ship's surgeon doesn't like the implications.
Yeah. Again, I think you should be talking about tactics to prevent that millions of lives being lost, Doctor. But anyway.
That's why they need the personnel director and gives Kirk some guidance on who should be in the room for these kind of things.
And so they kind of discuss what should they do. Styles, of course, wants to attack. He's like, we there's only one thing to do, and that's attack. And then...
but he also makes statements like, well, somehow Scotty just offers his off-the-cuff take that they only have impulse engines. There's no way he actually could know that.
Right.
Which they just accept.
Right. They're like, okay.
He's the engineer. And then Styles is like, well, we could retreat. And it's not said like he doesn't want to do that.
Right. But he's a dick. Like, Styles is just a dick. He's like, yeah, it'll help us run away, pussies. And he really wants to attack. And Styles is like, they're on our side of the neutral zone. They broke the treaty. And everyone else is sort of perplexed. How can you shoot at a target you can't see? And he goes off on this sort of anti-Romulan screed. And then also sort of racistly says, what do you think, Spock? These are your people.
You're one of them.
Yeah. And Spock says, we should attack them because if they are like related to my people, they're going to be savage and ruthless or something like this. And talks about, this is our first glimpse, I think, of ancient Vulcan, maybe? That they were once a warlike, brutal people. I can't recall if maybe there was another mention of it before, but we get more of that here.
McCoy does mention that because they don't drink is why they were all conquered.
Oh, right. That's
might not be true. I guess we don't know that. He was sort of drunk when he said it.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. If you've watched Enterprise, you could argue the Vulcans conquered Earth, but that's neither here nor there for now. So Kirk is swayed both by Spock and slightly by Styles' racism, and they agree to go to battle stations. And they need to find, this is actually, we always hear about Captain Kirk as a brilliant tactician, and now we actually get to see it. And so, we also learn, before that, we learn about the speed of communications. So it's going to be 3 hours until they get a reply from Starfleet Command. And they discover that there's a comet in their way. And that's where they're going to make their stand, because it will render even the invisible cloaked Romulan warbird visible. And
I think the episode does a good job of demonstrating that while sort of you could argue the possible outcomes are the same, Kirk and Styles actually want completely different things.
That's true.
Kirk makes an enlightened but uncomfortable decision to execute a police action to keep the peace, while Styles, it's just barbarism.
Yeah, Styles is a warmonger. He wants a war. Both Kirk and the Romulan commander are warriors in the service of peace. And they understand the need for military action, occasionally force, in order to enforce a greater peace. And they are they are the only thing that separates us from warmongers like Styles and Decius.
Right. I mean, although Kirk is running this ship down, he is making these decisions from a defensive posture.
Right. Yeah, and as we'll see. As we'll see very soon. So he orders everyone to battle stations, and we will soon be at the Comet. So that's Act 2.
All right, let's do this.
All right.
3 and 3.
That was easy. 3 and 3. Go ahead, Doug.
Too much talking.
I think Kirk's inability to manage his crew to get the information he needs and then still come up with the right decision that reflects on him as the character of Kirk and is fairly metal. And the distinction between Kirk's position and Styles' position is very important. And I think it comes across. But what's metal, though? Vengeance or tactical police action to preserve non-combat status? Probably barbarism and vengeance.
Yeah. Probably more metal than just strategic counter-moving.
I think Styles not understanding what he wants and just ranting and raving and then not being thrown out of the room, that's pretty metal. And then McCoy in a tactical meeting saying, we don't need tactics. Think about those 6 million people. And here we are talking about tactics.
Scotty just blindingly asserting things on the basis of nothing. Well, they don't got nothing but impulse.
Yeah. So
How? How
all
do you
that's-
know that?
all that's pretty metal. So I'm gonna go with a 6 and a 4. Again, this weird. Well, the system's gonna work, but these acts are all building up and don't pay off in themselves always.
I think that's part of the brilliance of this scheme, right? Let's see. Besides the other things we talked about, there's actual metal. There's more appearance of real metal, the rhodinium. Now it's weakened metal, imploded by exposure to high energy plasma, but nonetheless a metal. Also, we have the issue of the aesthetic of the Romulan vessel. I feel like it's very metal. If there was, later Romulans will get more leathery straps involved in their uniform. They get much metaler, but this is a pretty good metal basis, so that's worth some points.
And I want to the Roman imagery is so metal and so not utilized. There's just like XDO, that one band, but the Roman Empire is so much more metal than Vikings.
Yeah, so much more metal. We really should start a metal side project, Romanum or something. SPQR, that's fucking metal.
Well, the Symphony X already did it.
No, we'll do it better. We can do it better.
Better than Symphony X used to be.
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe.
I mean,
Ours
first
would be
of all,
about the Romulan Empire.
if they were really Roman, they'd be Symphony 10. So I'm going to give them a 5.5 metal score. Quality, it's slow. I think the having 2 bridges is cool, so I'll give it a 5. Why not? Open the door.
Oh, was that it?
That's it.
All right, go.
4 or 3.
We open on the comet. Kirk
So-
somehow knows the exact properties of this comet.
Hey, that's a good looking comment in the remaster.
Yeah, did you see the remaster or did you see the original graphics, Doug?
I think this one I've only watched the remaster.
Okay, because I'm curious. Maybe I'll go back and see the original graphics. It looks like watching the remaster, they didn't touch a lot of the bird of prey. It looked very much like the original model work, or maybe they've just cleaned up some edges. It looked very faithful to the 1960s presentation, but then all of a sudden on the remastered, this photorealistic James Webb Space Telescope quality image of a comet is just on screen. And I'm like, well, that's a big tonal shift right here. But it is a beautiful comet. It's purpley.
Disclaimer, when this airs, we'll know if it survived the launch.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it did most likely. So we got that thing. We'll also know if it was renamed. So there's this Comet Gambit that I also don't entirely get, because why would the bird of prey fly? If it was a nebula, later on they'll solve this problem by having a nebula, something that you can't avoid. But it seems very easy for the bird of prey to just
nebula or whatever,
fly up and around the comet, or just fly in front of it, or I don't know. Just seemed.
And the comet just seems to happen to be there.
Yeah.
And then Kirk knows the comet and all its properties and is able to guess exactly how the Romulans are going to play it.
I mean, I imagine this is the neutral zone. It's probably a well-studied part of space, and comets do have their periodicity. So maybe, I'm I'm sure that there could be a comet. That's fairly predictable. But I still, again, kind of thinking three-dimensionally. I don't understand why anyone could be driven into the comet or choose to fly in a comet when your entire sense, your tactical superiority is entirely based on being invisible. So why fly through something that makes you visible?
Oh!
But they do. And the Romulan commander, though, figures it out. He knows what Kirk is up to. They're very equal commanders. As you can hear, there's some phaser fire. Phasers are apparently depth charges in this episode. They're not the sort of beam you're usually thinking of with phasers. They just kind of like they're set
Why
to
would you
proximity.
do that? Apparently, getting hit with a piece of your own ship clouds
and I
your
got to
command
give
decisions.
Okuda credit for not coloring them red because these are obviously photon torpedoes.
Yeah, these
They
are
just haven't invented it
very
yet.
obviously photon torpedoes. They have the photon torpedo sound. They have proximity detonation, whatever the hell that means.
Oh no, it's probably just like when sea mines used to be called torpedoes.
Okay.
Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead.
But I feel like phaser means something like laser means something. I think it's like a phased energy or something like that. So
No, this is probably before they invented phasers and then decided to rename. Well, we already have something called phasers. Well, those aren't really phasers. Those are more like torpedoes. They're like photon-y.
They're like phase modulated particle beams. I mean, I can't, and we know they're phasers. We've seen them phase.
Oh shit.
So Kirk underestimates the Romulan commander, and their execution of escape maneuver 1 is effective.
Yep.
So they can't
That's
find
why
the
it's
ship.
number 1.
And he calls hard to starboard, and then blindly fire everywhere, which is successful. A successful Kirkian gambit.
So there's all kinds of debris and shit. Is this when the XO that's covered but gets trampled by the debris, or is that? Oh yeah, because that's his Centurion, right? So yeah, the XO pushes him out of the way. All the debris falls on him. So he's pretty much dead soon. Again,
and right before that, there's the Romulans attack, and they outrun the plasma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. So the Romulans fire their plasma thing, and they're going full backwards, maximum warp. And it makes me wonder how fast the plasma is going. But they keep going backwards, and they learn that there's a finite range.
I guess it dissipates too much if you're too far.
Yeah, so they escape, and then they go back, and that's why they're firing blindly, right? In answer to that attack.
Then Rand does something, because she's always after Kirk. And in the middle of this battle, comes up to ask if she should continue to do log entries.
I know what kind of log entries she wants to do.
Oh!
And then she starts touching him in a manner not appropriate on the bridge.
Yeah, when she thought they were
times.
all about to die, she clings to him.
Yeah. Also, we learned that firing the phasers too much causes them all to burn out, which seems like a fatal design error.
And in the circuitry in the bridge as well. Nowhere near
part of
the phaser thing.
It's part of the phaser. Well, don't. You'll find out. Don't worry. Don't.
Well, how is
get ahead of
it
yourself.
know that?
There's that great shot where Spock pulls a power move on Styles.
Yeah.
And just comes like 3 inches above him.
I just got there.
Yeah.
He gets right up on him, and then walks away. The Romulan captain said that the other Kirk is not one to make the same mistake twice or something like that. How's he gonna know that?
Well, because he knows this by fighting him, he knows him. He's thinking what he would do. They're of a kind, the two of them.
Yeah. And Kirk knows he'll have success in more blind attacks, and does.
Yep. And so they, so the Romulan commander is hatching a plan.
Nice.
And he's gonna like put a bunch of debris in the tubes, including the body of his dead friend, who P.S. just died. And I guess his plan, again, this seems much more like a submarine plan. But they're gonna shoot all the debris and garbage outside of the tubes, and that's gonna make the Enterprise think that they were destroyed. And that once they get so they get the phasers fixed first, I guess, and then they fire again, and that's when they launch all the garbage in the tubes, hoping to trick the Enterprise into thinking they were destroyed.
Yeah, then they're about to enter the neutral zone, and there's a decision point here. Again, Styles seems cross purposes to himself a bit, but Kirk stands by his conviction that what they are doing is an appropriate police action to mitigate the chance of an escalation in hostilities with the Romulan Empire, and sticks to this uncomfortable but appropriate plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then cue the decision room.
Yeah, that's it.
We actually beat the TV. They just threw the guys the episode. They just threw the guy's body into the thing. Debris is scattering, sir.
Oh, also we should mention that they they rigged the Enterprise for a silent running, whatever that means.
All that sound gets out into space.
Yeah, well, that vacuum keeps transmitting sound.
Oh, well, Spock's too smart for it.
I think we'll see that it's the terminology changes over time.
Yeah.
They've just kept simpler terms as science has advanced.
Okay. All right.
That makes
sense.
Loss of data or signal, radio. Anyway, so pretty good act.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you.
Lots of action.
Believe it or not.
Lots of action. Lots of debris. Most of that debris was metal, and it was his friend. Depth charges, periscopes, sonar. It's all really good.
That plasma chase is well executed.
Yeah, there was lots of tension there. I mean, I don't think we portrayed it well, but it's very tense.
I can throw down some numbers.
Okay.
I'm happy to.
Okay.
For quality score, I forget what order I usually do. For quality score, I'm going to go with a 9. That was good. I enjoy it. Was tense. People died. They shoved them out into space. Yeah, this is very good. Metal scores is pretty metal as well. I'll give it an 8.8888.
8888. 4.8s. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Quality score is a 9. I'm gonna give it an extra 0.2222 metal points, just because of Rand's concern about paperwork during a battle, which that's fucking metal.
Hey, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly, and they're using all their phasers and stuff, but no one's using that space clipboard. So we got to keep the log entries going. So that's 2 9s from me.
Well, and I think it's a little because I think she was looking for something else.
Yes, she was.
But even just
in the middle of combat is also irresponsible and metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to go 9 and 9.
Wow. Okay. Whew. Wow. All right. Last act. What could happen?
So we open with the Enterprise in silent running.
Because that ship.
Well, they lost contact with the Romulan vessel. Sure did. Are we running silent?
Sure
too?
did. Yeah, because they are silent as well. And
we get like one bridge scene,
but they got
cut.
Yeah,
to
there's
Kirk
like a
in his
weird
quarters.
It's just like kind of like a station, I think we get two quick. I think we get a bridge scene and then a quick Romulan scene, and they're both sort of trying to convey waiting, and they're both waiting for their play, right? So it's like the tension. Someone has to make a move. Both crews are tense. We get a little foreshadowing because Spock says he has to fix something because the transfer coil is giving out again. And then we're in Kirk's quarters.
And it's 9 hours, 47 minutes later, and Kirk starts to have a crisis of confidence.
Yeah.
And Rand is instructed to get him coffee to take to the bridge when he gets back there.
Apparently, anyone can wander into the captain's quarters whenever they damn well feel like it.
The ship surgeon, it's in the book.
If you have the power to marry people, then you gotta, with great responsibility comes great, you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, and we learn that while Kirk loves sailing, and it's a little different than captaining a starship, he doesn't like the burden of deck tennis or dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, frantic dancing at that.
And then McCoy delivers an amazing, factually incorrect, folksy platitude on individuality. In fact, I think it needs to be read into the record.
I think it should be.
Seldom I say something to a customer, Jim. In this galaxy, there's a mathematical probability of 3 million Earth-type planets, and in all the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And in all of that, perhaps more, only one of each of us. Don't destroy the one named Kirk. How many multiple Kirks have we met already?
Yeah. We've at least met 5 Kirks. There's a robot one. There's a transporter created one. There's our buddy George Kirk, who's also named Kirk for the record.
I think we know about at least 3 Earths.
Yeah. Like exact copies of Earth, not just Earth-like things. So that's weird. And
why is he concerned? And it's like this can only be about Kirk losing himself mentally, because obviously the consequences of the decision here go beyond Kirk. McCoy has already established 6 million lives are at stake.
Yeah, It's just a weird thing to say.
That's one character from McCoy.
Yeah, it's strange, but luckily we don't have to dwell on that for very long because Spock is about to fuck up royal.
He sure does.
So we switch to the bridge. I still don't
looks
understand.
to me like it's gonna work out.
We switch to the bridge. Spock is working on the little panel underneath his desk, I guess is what you could call it. Something happens, and he finishes work, I guess, and he goes to like pull himself up, and in doing so, he just like clumsily smashes some buttons, and it's like boop, boop.
Well, it's clever because while it's loud, we know that it's actually transmitting radio signal, and that's what the Romulans detect.
Yeah. So Styles has like this "what an asshole, you fucking killed us" look on his face, and all Kirk can say is like, "It's all right, it's all right." Meanwhile, on the Romulan ship, they're like, "Holy shit, we got him!" And we have to spring into action again. If only Spock had done that 9 hours and 47 minutes ago.
And Kirk knows that they're going to slip under the Enterprise, which I don't. Well, we don't know how Space War is going to work. There may be a rationale to that, and Kirk is a master at this and has proven correct.
I mean, it's him and Garth of Algar, whatever his name was.
I'd like to get by now.
And so more depth charge fire. They hit the ship. The Romulan commander refers to Kirk as a sorcerer for some reason. And again, the Romulans seem really, for such a warlike people, and they mentioned earlier that the commander and the Centurion have been in hundreds of campaigns, which I imagine must be many hundreds, if not thousands, of battles. They seem to be really surprised how well just firing in all directions can hit something. And they're like, how can he keep hitting us? They're only firing in every direction. And so the commander is really shaken up. It's like he reads the thoughts in my brain.
Yeah, and he's like leaning on the wall, going like.
Well, I think he's quasi-suicidal.
Yeah, he seems. Again, I don't know why you would choose this. This is kind of like what I call the Hunt for Red October error. It's like, why would you put a commander who you know to be problematic in charge of your mega weapon? And yet is the Hunt for Red October just a soft remake of this episode?
Yes.
Holy shit. Wow. Anyway, so now the commander is desperate. They have some of the old style nuclear warheads. And they're going to mine the debris, a very Romulan move, if I can evoke Mr. Styles for a moment there. And so they throw the wreckage again. They have another proximity fuse, because everything has a proximity fuse in the future. And so they scatter the debris. Spock quickly discovers that there's a metal cased object, which is the warhead.
Where we nuke.
Yeah. They go hard over, and they fire the phasers. They explode the thing. This is one of our very first, like, everyone gets thrown across a tilted bridge shots.
Yes,
which
and
is great.
they all go in different directions, as you do.
You know, we don't understand how momentum works because there's inertial dampeners and all kinds of things, right? So there's probably a scattering effect.
Well, hang on. Let me give you an analysis here. All right, let's see. All right, there's the thing. All right, Uhura goes to the port. The person opposite of her falls towards starboard. Kirk falls towards the aft. The people in the chairs go in two different directions. And then everything goes black.
I mean, the gravity system is probably failing at different points for every person.
Sure. I guess they improved it by the next generation when everyone fell in the same direction.
Okay, so
forward march to progress.
That's right.
So on the Romulan ship, they're really happy that their ploy worked.
Well, everyone but the captain, who no one's really smiling. Anyway, go ahead.
So
oh shit.
The commander wants to go back home to Romulus, but that Dick Decius wants to finish the job. And he says, "They're at our mercy, Commander. I remind you of our duty." Again, the commander cares much more about the mission and, proving a point, doing what they set out to do, which I still don't understand what that was exactly, except goading the Federation into a war. But for whatever reason, they've done what they came to do, and he just wants to bring his boys home.
Well, don't they say something about evidence or knowledge? It's very vague, but
I think they just wanted to demonstrate their power to the Federation. Perhaps I'm sure we could get into memory beta here, but I think perhaps this is a show of power and then renegotiating with reaching out by subspace radio and saying that's a sample of what one of our ships can do. So we went.
And I think you're right, Matt, to go to that depth, because I think the diplomacy and what they're signaling angle, the kind of thing that MacArthur got wrong in Korea by being allowed to drift into the political realm.
Exactly. This is very clear, and certainly Romulans, right? There is a very clear. The military is in service of the continuing committee and the praetor and the consul and all of this, and ultimately the emperor. So theirs is not to think too far. Theirs is to conduct their mission, do their police actions, go no further than their mission parameters, and then return. And then the wider strategy can continue. Yeah,
and then so we cut back to the Enterprise. We worried about the casualties, 22 so far, mostly radiation burns. And I guess this is the military meaning of the term casualty, which is just knocked out of action,
right?
Rather than death. But apparently it's only the 25 people we saw who worked the phaser bays.
Oh, that's not good.
Because only the forward phaser room is up, and it's just Tomlinson manning it alone, like that guy in the Second World War. What was his name? The Sabaton wrote a song about him.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Yeah, he killed. Anyway, So Styles' first assignment was in weapons control. So he goes
Audie Murphy.
Yeah, Audie Murphy. He was in Star Trek.
I mean, it's strange to me that Scotty knows all this and isn't going. He's like, yeah, there's just one guy in the phaser room. It's not like I run the whole goddamn engineering department. Just FYI.
Yeah, this is happening, Captain.
You better fucking command your way out of this. It's not like it's an engineering department problem. This shipboard operations crap.
Yeah, and then Uhura takes over navigation. I forget if this is the first.
Because Styles volunteers to go down and work the phasers because that was his first job.
It's important to
everyone's
cross-train.
first jobs. It is important to cross train, and that's pretty. Cross training is metal.
And then Scotty just goes back to standing there, offering commentary.
Even though Uhura is at the navigation console, she still has her ear thing in, I think. So I guess she's doing 2 jobs, so maybe they need to cross-train Uhura's job.
Yeah. Well, didn't we see like 2 or 3 episodes ago that kind of like got weird-looking guy who was the
yeah,
but he also was wearing it at the console.
Yeah, it's probably Nichelle Nichols is like, no one's wearing my fucking ear thing but me. That's got to go in my goddamn ear.
So they get power back. I guess Scotty would at least take credit for that. And so they vacillate on what to do, whether they should pull back, play dead, try and keep the Romulans on our side of the neutral zone, which it's a neutral zone.
Yeah.
There's no side. Okay. Well, right. This is a space neutral zone. Yeah, I've got to stop thinking in 2 dimensions.
Yeah, maybe it's real thin, but real
century
long.
paradigms.
It's millimeters thick, but light years wide.
There you go.
So then,
why did it do that? What's going on?
That's why they can depict it like that in the 2D map.
That's right.
The neutral zone.
We all know it's this line.
Spock weirdly goes to check in on the phaser crews for some reason, and the only reason is for Styles to be racist to him. So Spock literally, again, I've never read this episode as Spock being a Romulan spy, but maybe he is.
I caught that too, because as soon as he leaves the room, the plasma coolant leak starts.
Yes, so Spock says, just checking in on you, and Styles says, I don't need your help, Vulcan. Spock leaves, and then immediately the room fills with toxic, purple, crazy knockout gas.
Yeah, it's like a Batman episode.
And then, right, like magic, Spock knows to go back. I guess there's an announcement.
Yeah, so Kirk is ordering to fire phasers. They've both been knocked out by the purple crazy knockout gas. And I guess, again, why is Spock there? Why isn't he doing his job? What's he up to? He runs back, fires the phasers on command. There's more depth charges. And they damage.
Just leaning over and hitting a button on a
Yeah,
Herman Miller action office desk.
Looks like he held it down and it fired a bunch of times.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's how shipboard artillery works. You know. So that happens, and we assume Spock pulls them out of the phaser control, but we don't see it. And now we're back on the bridge.
And
maybe
and Kirk knows it must be done to complete this police action, so he goes in for the kill.
But Doug, Spock conspicuously made himself not visible on the bridge when the Romulan.
Yeah,
we're gonna start. All right, coming soon, Metal Nation. A spin-off podcast. Styles was right.
Yeah, it's the fan theory podcast you've been waiting for.
I don't think I'll be a part of that.
Okay, yeah. Well, neither will Dave.
All right, I finished the episode. Hurry up.
Okay. So for some reason they get the Romulan commander on the screen. They want to see each other eye to eye. They have grudging respect for each other. Kirk says, "I'll beam aboard your survivors." The Romulan commander says, "This is not our way." There's a very famous line. This is like every Cold Warrior's wet dream kind of line. I regret that we met in this way. You and I are of a kind. In a different reality, I could have called you friend. And then he blows up his ship. and Kirk is disappointed and regretful, but Kirk also understands. And he is correct. This Romulan commander and Kirk are of a kind. And he knows it as much as the Romulan knows it.
And this scene works as well here as it worked in Run Silent, Run Deep.
Yeah. Which it totally didn't rip off at all. Nope.
So then, then the only person who dies is Tomlinson, who's going to get married. And, Kirk is not happy. I mean, this is a necessary police action to prevent an escalation of a non-conflict situation. So they did what needed to be done for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. But his last duty is to console the grieving widow.
Which I don't really think he does all that well.
Yeah, well, he looks distant, and then she hugs him, and he continues to look distant.
Yep. And she says, "I'm all right."
He's thinking the Enterprise is okay.
Yeah.
And then they needed to pad this episode slightly, so there's a scene of him just walking in the hall.
Yeah. There's a long walkout. But that's it. Let's get ourselves to the atomic decision chamber.
All right.
I don't know why it's atomic.
Wow, lots happened in this.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with an 8 for quality. It was pretty good. It's just more of the same from the previous act, which I enjoyed. And then it was pretty metal as well. So I'll give it a 7.777.
7.777. Okay. Quality score is a 9.5. The only 0.5 deduction is I thought the whole, it's kind of bullshit. Tomlinson had to die. I think it would have been better if Styles died, knowing he was
that would have been
wrong.
more satisfying. Yes.
I feel like that's a better narrative.
Where Styles died knowing he was right.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the truth, right? Even better. I would have liked it better if the boy was, Tomlinson was disfigured somehow. I think that would have a better narrative message of we live with our scars and damage, and then that whole, they could be getting ready for the wedding again, and Kirk could give his whole "it had to be done" speech. I think that would be much more effective. Metal score, it's pretty fucking metal. This whole act is a Sabaton song, basically. In addition, they steal a bunch of stuff from a bunch of other people, which I sadly must admit is also pretty metal. So that's a 9.99 metal score for me.
Wow. Well,
Wow.
I'm gonna go 9.5 and 9.5. I agree with everything Matt expounded regarding the quality, as well as the alternative ending interpretation that would have been, geopolitical situations, the impact on actual people is abstract, and it would have been tough to see them, rewarding to see them have to negotiate that abstraction, but know that they were on the right side.
Yeah.
Metal. This is a metal score based on people acting honorably and responsibly, which is a little different than some of the other ones, but nevertheless, there's a lot of metal conduct here. and violence, and the fact that all their strategies the tactics of both commanders essentially just shoot wildly and randomly.
Yeah.
Which works. So we learned some interesting things about space war.
Yeah, we do. So to wrap it up, when I watched this episode, especially at the end, I thought this was a strong contender for a medalist episode. In fact, it is not, and in fact, it is only just barely more metal than the previous episode we watched, The Conscience of the King, at a 70.75. I looking at our scores, the last two acts were the most metal acts we've ever scored.
I think the slow build did it in.
Yeah, it's those first two acts. In fact, the teaser is one of our lowest rated things that's not Mud's Women. So I mean that's just to show you how objective this rating system is. Just looking at some other things. And
the viewer may say, or listener, however you reach us, but the slow build adds to the tension. That may or may not be true. I'm not going to take a position, but it is not metal.
That's not metal. That's not metal at all.
Painkiller. Mm-hmm. It's all guns blazing. Every track. And as we'll see, there's some Star Trek episodes that we'll see if the gamesters of Triskelion lives up to the hype I give it every other episode, but I think that's all guns blazing. We'll see.
I'm so excited for the gamesters of Triskelion, but I know what's not a metal episode, and that's what we'll be watching next. Doug's favorite Star Trek episode on the entire franchise, Shore Leave. So we'll see you on shore next time.
All right, thanks for listening.
Cast them down.
No, I like Return to Shore Leave even more, but we'll get to that, or whatever they call it.
Two of them.
The animated series.
There's a goddamn Alice in Wonderland rabbit. The white fucking rabbit. They hadn't even written that song yet.
I did buy this Martin Company ashtray from 1957. It just came. Weapons for Peace.
Wow.